is organized by Wisdom Intellectual Forum, Puri, in collaboration with Philosophy Family. This is today we are having the 19th lecture in the webinar series. Today, Professor Pramod Kumar Das will be speaking on the cosmic vision of the unmanifest. This is a very interesting topic. But before we move into his lecture, let me briefly say what he said during the course of his last lecture. His last lecture was under the title, The Divine Glories of Manifestation. Last Saturday, he said that the unmanifest can manifest in different forms. He listed out. Now again he said, what we call unmanifest can also be found in this manifest world. But what is required is the vision to see the unmanifest in this manifest world. He talked of two classes of people. About the first class of people, he said that they are the people who believe only in the manifest world and the manifest reality. The unmanifest has no meaning for them. He also talked about the second class of people who believe only in the reality of the unmanifest. But in the lines of the Bhagavad Gita, Professor Das clearly attached reality to both the unmanifest and the manifest. The manifest is also as real as the unmanifest. He said that Bhagavad Gita believes the presence of the unmanifest in the manifest. And he also said, a Sthita Prajna, a man of complete wisdom, can see the unmanifest even in the manifest, and also can see the manifest in the unmanifest. For such a man of complete wisdom or steadfast wisdom, both manifest and the unmanifest are one and the same. They are only for people who have a lower level of consciousness. They see a duality, but in the lines of Bhagavad Gita, Sthita Prajna can happily move from the unmanifest to the manifest world, and also from the manifest world, he can also happily return back to the state of the unmanifest. So both the ways a Sthita Prajna can make a transition without being affected, without being carried on by the dualities, the multiplicities of this world. So thank you, thanks for his lecture, thanks for his thought, for sharing his thought during the course of his last lecture. Now, let us move to Professor Das to learn from him as to what he wants to say regarding the cosmic vision of the unmanifest. Now, let us all move to Professor Das for his lecture. Over to Professor Das.
Sir, am I audible, sir?
Yes, sir, audible and visible, both.
Respected Dr. Rao, very esteemed participants of this session. Today we have a very beautiful topic, the cosmic vision of the unmanifest. In the last session, we are discussing about the divine glories of manifestation. Whether something is manifest or unmanifest, that is only understood by human beings. Animals are not interested either in manifestation or in the unmanifest. It is the human mind that seeks the sacred wisdom, seeks the highest knowledge of the truth. The world that we see around us, whether this is real or appearance, such questions are the possibilities of human mind. And man is satisfied, an ignorant man is satisfied with manifestations. So it is very difficult to understand the complete manifestation of one thing. Therefore, in Jaina system, it is beautifully said that we cannot perceive, we cannot know, we cannot conceptualize every aspect of one thing. Whatever we perceive, whatever we know, whatever we claim to know, that is only from a particular perspective, particular aspect. That means all possible manifestations are beyond human knowledge. Therefore, we are satisfied with incomplete manifestation. And we claim that that is our knowledge. Man is always in the realm of ignorance, but he claims that he is knowledgeable. Every state of our existence is a state of only ignorance. Because the more we know what we do not know. The more we know, the more we come to know the area of our ignorance. That means our knowledge is a very small island surrounded by the vast ocean of ignorance. It is true that our mind transforms from one level of consciousness to another level of consciousness gradually. From this it is evident that any ladder where we land, any ladder of consciousness, any level of our consciousness indicates only a state of ignorance, because there is still a higher level of consciousness. There is still the beyond. Therefore, there is transformation. There is evolution. We are evolving means we are always in a state of limitation, and still there is a goal to attain. Therefore, it is very natural that we cannot explore, we cannot understand the complete manifestation. We are always satisfied with the incomplete manifestation. Incomplete manifestation means we accept the outer world as it appears to us, as it is projected by our mind, our mode of perception, our mode of understanding. That means our world is a psychological projected world. So, the divine manifestation or the manifestation of something or of the cosmos or of the divine, that is not known to us completely. And it is impossible because that is beyond human knowledge. Neither through sense organs nor through mind we can know the complete reality. And the secret of knowledge is that we should know the limit of our knowledge. That yes, our knowledge is limited, and that was the contribution of Immanuel Kant in the Western philosophy. Immanuel Kant proved that he was not interested in a phenomenal world or nominal world. He was only interested to show that the human knowledge is limited, because the knowledge claim of a man about the empirical world is only through the categories of understanding, forms of understanding, modes of understanding. That depends upon his own conviction, own beliefs. If I am a religious person, if I belong to any religion, that is only because of my fond beliefs. I believe so, therefore I belong to a particular religion. If my beliefs change, then I may change the religion. Science also deals with relativity. Science cannot claim that whatever is experimented by the scientific method, that is absolute. That is subject to verification, that is subject to revision, that is subject to change. It is not certain, it is probable. And philosophy lands in speculation. There is no conclusion in philosophy. We just speculate. And it is very natural that when the entire manifestation is not assessed by human mind, it is very natural to speculate the reality, because it is not assessed to our mode of understanding. Therefore, it was the prayer of Arjuna to Lord Krishna that please be very kind to me. I surrender before you. Please show me your glories of manifestation. I am unable to see the total manifestation because I am satisfied with a particular perspective. For example, if I am satisfied with the thesis, then I am not satisfied with the antithesis. We are always in the crossroad. We always choose one path at the cost of the other. Therefore, our perception cannot be complete. Therefore, our assessment about the reality cannot be universal. Because either we are trapped by thesis or antithesis. This or that. So, the truth that manifests in both thesis and antithesis, that cannot be assessed by this human mind, because this mind is conditioned to a particular way of understanding, particular way of knowing. Because it is guided by logic. Our mind is guided by logic, and logic never admits contradictions. Thesis and antithesis are contradictory to each other. So we cannot take both thesis and antithesis together. Because our mind will not allow that. Because our mind is guided by logic. Either it accepts thesis or it accepts antithesis. For example, one person cannot remain present at two places at the same time. One person cannot remain present at two places at the same time. This if it happens so, then it will be a contradiction. One man is both present and absent. This is a contradiction. Our mind cannot accept this. One man is moving and not moving. This is a contradiction. Far and near. He is both far and near. Not from different perspectives. From this perspective, he is far, and from another perspective, he is here. No. From the same perspective, he is far and near. He is moving and not moving. He is present and absent. Such contradictions cannot be accepted by our mind because logic does not permit it. Because our mind is logical. Our thought is logical. So by that logical vision, by that logical understanding, we cannot transcend contradictions. We cannot transcend logical absurdity. Because our instrument is logic. Our instrument is rational thinking. Our instrument is analysis. So we can analyze, we can divide, and that division is also limited. So far as our knowledge goes, our knowledge permits, we can analyze. It has also its limit. So by the instrument of logical vision, we cannot visualize the complete manifestation. That is the greatest contribution of Jaina philosophy. Therefore, Anekantavada. Why there are many views? There are many views because every view is from one perspective. Many minds, many thoughts. Many thoughts, many perspectives. Many perspectives, therefore many conclusions. It's very natural. Because man ignorantly thinks that he is the measure of everything. Man is the measure of everything. No. Man is not the measure of anything. And man thinks that he can explain the world. He can explain the entire manifestation. But man only floats on the surface. He has he is not grounded with the reality, and he can't. That is the limitation. That is the limitation of human understanding. Because of the logical vision, we can see the logical oddity. We can see the logical contradictions. And we are bound to remain under that logical contradiction. Logic does not permit this, therefore we cannot accept this. How can a man remain present at two places at the same time? How can one man move and not move? How can one is here and there? Because it is not understood by the logical mind. So why the entire manifestation, the complete manifestation is not understood, is not realized? Because it cannot be realized by the logical vision, by the logical instrument, by the logical mind. Therefore science fails, philosophy fails, religion fails, literature fails. They only speak about the appearance. They only speak about what they perceive according to their own measurement. It is very peculiar to say that science claims that it creates everything. Science does not create anything. Nothing is created by science. Science only explains what is created. Science cannot create anything de novo, anything new. Science cannot create the material. The material is there. Science cannot create water. It is not that hydrogen and oxygen are equal to matter. No. It is explained by science that in water such elements are there. Before this scientific knowledge, water was there. Air was there. Was and is and will be. The nature is constant. The elements are constant. They are there. Science only explains the nature. Science only discovers the secret in nature. Science only describes what is there in the nature. It is explored, it is discovered, it is explained by science, and it is speculated by philosophy, and it is believed in many ways by religion, and it is described in literary ways through literature. But no such instrument can give a complete assessment of the total manifestation because it is impossible. Science, philosophy, religion, literature, logic, mathematics, all are products of a logical mind. Therefore, they halt at one place. Therefore, they stop at one place. Beyond a point, they don't have any access. So we shall discuss about the cosmic vision of the unmanifest. It is a very big thing. But before that, when we are discussing about the glories of a manifestation, the unmanifest is a very big thing. But the very manifestation, the complete manifestation, is also not known to a human mind. Man is only satisfied with the incomplete manifestation. Man cannot know the complete manifestation. So Arjuna had two requests, two prayers. One prayer was in the chapter 10, and another prayer was in the chapter 11. And there was also a third prayer that I shall tell later on. The first prayer was that show me your complete manifestation. Show me your complete manifestation. Here you is symbolic. Here Arjuna is symbolic. Lord Krishna is symbolic. Arjuna is not asking Lord Krishna. An ignorant mind is asking a mind of wisdom. That you show your complete manifestation. Because I cannot see, I cannot perceive, I cannot understand, I cannot realize your complete manifestation. Suppose we shall see at a straight, how far we can see? Because my perception has a limitation. Even if I shall see through a microscope, it has also its own limit. So the first prayer of Arjuna to Lord Krishna was to show me your complete manifestation. Manifest in your complete vision. Show me your complete manifestation. From this it is evident that we cannot have access for the complete manifestation or the total manifestation. This is one prayer that was discussed in chapter 10, and Lord Krishna, we were discussing that how Lord Krishna exposed the entire manifestation, that I am the mountain, I am the river, I am the ocean, I am tree, I am plant, I am prana, I am everything. I am life, I am death. I am everything. I am every thought of your mind. I am the seed, I am everything. I am the cause, I am the effect. Now the question is that I understood the manifestation. This is the dialogue between a teacher and a student. It is not that if a student starts his class from chapter 11 and he will request to his teacher that you please show me your Vishwarupa, your universal form, the teacher will not agree. Arjuna was such a student who was taught all these 10 chapters. Arjuna is a symbolic student. That means the mind who is groomed, who is cultured with the secrets of the reality, the ultimate truth, the limitation of knowledge, the realm of ignorance, described in all the previous chapters, 10 chapters. What is karma, what is jnana, what is reality, what is unreality, what is incomplete manifestation, what is complete manifestation. That mind is qualified to visualize the unmanifest. So there are 3 states of mind. Number one mind, because in Indian culture, in Indian philosophy, we believe that mind is a layer of consciousness. There are different layers of consciousness. We transform from a lower level of consciousness to a higher level of consciousness. And our level of consciousness determines our mode of understanding, our world view, our understanding of the world, that is rooted in our level of consciousness. So one level of consciousness that can understand only the incomplete manifestation. Another level of consciousness, conscious mind, that can understand, visualize, realize the total manifestation. And still there is a higher mind, higher level of consciousness, who is groomed with, cultured with, trained by all these processes. That mind can see the cosmic vision of the unmanifest. That means from the logical vision, by a logical mind, we cannot have the cosmic vision. Cosmic vision is beyond logical vision. Logic has a limit. Logic guides us only in this empirical world. In this empirical world, is subjecting to space and time. I told regarding the time that in one particular time, two persons cannot remain present. So here logic is connected with time. So because of the time concern, we see there is a contradiction. Similarly, in place, there is contradiction. So beyond empirical world, this logic will not work. There we need a transcendental mind, a transcendental vision, a universal vision, a cosmic vision. Many people may think that it is a myth, that having the universal vision is a myth. Having a cosmic vision is a myth. It is not logical. It is simply a belief. It is a myth. It is something metaphysical. It is not scientific. But in Indian culture, we have proved, our rishis, seers, they have proved that we can transform from the lower level of consciousness to the higher level of consciousness. Therefore, we can explore the nature more and more manifestations, and ultimately the unmanifest. So the natural condition of human mind is that man is satisfied with the incomplete manifestation. The second qualification is man can see the total manifestation. And the highest possibility is that man can see the unmanifest. This is that in the scripture. Now, how can one understand this?
Voice is stuck, sir. Voice is stuck. Now audible. Now again stuck. Not audible.
Hello?
Yes, audible.
So how is it possible in our practical life? Is it a myth? Is it religious? The answer is no. It is neither myth nor religious. It is the possibility of a human perception. It is possibility of a human understanding. It's the possibility of our consciousness. So we have to transcend the logical contradictions. We have to transcend we have to understand the dichotomies between thesis and antithesis. And that is possible by Sthita Prajna. But that is possible by a mind of equanimity. That is beautifully said, Samattvang yoga uchyate. Samattvang yoga uchyate. This is a spiritual sadhana that is taught in Bhagavad Gita. Yes, this is possible. It is not that only Arjuna can have the cosmic vision. It is symbolically described there in the Bhagavad Gita. It is not only that only Arjuna can see the total manifestation. In our practical life, every man who will be qualified of having a mind of steady wisdom, a sthita prajna, a equanimous state of mind, that mind can transcend all the dichotomies, all the contradictions, thesis and antithesis. Therefore, there is a possibility of a synthesis. So our mind should be synthetic. We always believe in analytic mind, but our mind should be synthetic. So there is a transition from analytic to synthetic. Thesis is all right, antithesis is all right, but we have to transcend that, transcend beyond thesis and antithesis, and we have to understand the synthesis. Synthesis means the realm of a higher scope, the higher reality, which includes both thesis and antithesis, the manifestation and the unmanifest. I am giving an example. We can understand this from the nature of our mind. Our mind thinks, our mind entertains different types of thoughts. Thoughts are coming and going. It is very natural. But we have to become the witness of our thoughts. Whatever may be the thought, we have to become the witness of our thought. This is a spiritual practice. Mind thinks, it is natural. Mind thinks positive and negative, that is also natural. But we have to witness the thoughts of our minds. Am I audible, sir? Hello?
Not audible, sir.
Hello?
Yes, audible.
Yes, that's
Audible, audible.
Audible, sir.
Thank you, thank you. So there is something problem in Dr. Rao's system.
Not audible. Not audible, sir.
Sir, I am audible to others.
Yes, audible. Clearly audible.
Not audible, sir. Not audible.
What I was saying.
Not audible, sir. Not audible.
Sir, that is something is going wrong in the Rao sir's problem. It is Rao sir's problem, perhaps, I think. But that sir is clearly audible.
Okay. Okay. How can we understand the
Not audible. Not audible. Please check the plug. Please check the pin, sir. It is not connected rightly. Not audible.
Rabindra Babu?
Yes.
Rabindra
yes,
Babu?
Yes, sir.
Please make a call to Dr. Rao and confirm him that, ensure him that I am audible.
Okay.
Please make a call, otherwise he will continue this way. Anyway,
Clearly audible to all, but unfortunately Rao sir could not get your voice.
because he is the
Not audible,
coordinator.
sir.
Because he is the coordinator, he is serious about it.
Not audible. Not at all audible.
The problem is the Rao sir.
ଶୁଣା ଯାଉଛି
Okay. How can we understand?
No, sir, you are not audible.
How can we understand both thesis
Audible to
and
others.
hello?
Is it audible to others? Please respond somebody.
ଆଜ୍ଞା
Is it audible?
ଶୁଣା ଯାଉଛି
Is it audible?
It's audible.
Okay.
Again, please.
How can we understand the manifest and unmanifest
Sir,
in our
not
personal?
audible.
Maybe something problem in
Please,
his.
your question is audible.
Dr. Jenna, did you call Dr. Rao? Please make him a call and ensure that I am audible. Anyway, how can we understand the manifest and unmanifest? Can we bring the entire cosmos to our scientific laboratory? Is it possible? No. We cannot bring the entire cosmos, sun, moon, all the entire galaxy to our scientific laboratory. So how can we understand the possibility of both manifest and unmanifest in our practical life? The problem was not with the Arjuna, or this was not the task for Lord Krishna to show Vishwarupa to Arjuna. Lord Krishna was worried that how can Arjuna be able to fight? How can Arjuna understand that he is not the agent, he is simply an instrument, but he wrongly thinks that he is an agent. So how Arjuna will be convinced of the transitory nature of the phenomenal world and also the absolute nature? This was his task. So as a layman, we are all Arjuna. Arjuna represents a common man. So we cannot bring the entire cosmos to the scientific laboratory to understand what is unmanifest and what is manifest. So how can we understand? So we can have experiments through our minds. So mind has both unmanifest state and manifest state. What is the manifestation of mind? The different thoughts. What is the thought? That is not important. If it is a thought, that is the manifestation of the unmanifest mind. Whether I think good or bad, that is a separate thing. Whatever I think, that is the manifestation of my thought, of my mind. So that is a state when my mind does not think at all. When I go to sleep, when I am sleeping, then my mind is free from thinking. My mind does not think. Suppose we can say that in the dream state I am dreaming, therefore my mind is thinking. So let us go to the deepless sleep state. In that state, mind is in complete rest. Mind does not think at all. So that mind is possible. That is the unmanifest state of mind. And when I am awake, I am engaged with different types of thoughts. What is the problem with us? We should just understand the very minimum task. It is not so difficult. It is very difficult to understand the complete manifestation of the divine. It is very difficult to realize, to have the cosmic vision of the unmanifest. It is very difficult. But it is very simple to understand that we can understand, we can witness that I am thinking. I am thinking this should be observed by myself. I should observe, I should witness that I am thinking this much. The moment I am observing, that mind is the unmanifest mind, because it is a very neutral mind. It is not biased by, it is not trapped by either this thought or that thought. So that mind, that observing mind, that witness mind, that unmanifest mind, that neutral mind can observe different thoughts. Maximum people, what they do, they think, and they become a part of their thoughts. This is the cause of all psychosomatic disease. This is the cause of all stress. This is the cause of all frustration. This is the cause of depression. Very simple. I am thinking, it's natural. I know that I am thinking. This is a difficult task. The moment I know that I am thinking this way or that way, then I am wise. If I am befooled by, if I am motivated by, if I become a part of my thought, then I am trapped. So whether I am trapped or I am liberated, that is my choice. By this way, we can control our senses, we can control our emotions, we can control our thoughts. Just become a witness. Suppose I am getting angry. It's very natural. There is such a situation where I have to be angry. There is no problem. The problem is that when I do not know that I am angry, I am trapped by my own anger. Then I commit so many mistakes. Then I realize that I committed such mistakes because I was angry. This is called trapping. Sometimes we pretend before our children, we pretend to be angry, but we know that we are not really, we love our children, but we pretend. That state is not maintained in our daily life in all possible situations. Sometimes we really get angry and we really get trapped by our own anger, and that time we are trapped by the manifestation of our mind. So the unmanifest mind, I am the owner of the unmanifest mind. The manifestations are my servants. They are my servants. They should remain under the control of the unmanifest mind. But the unmanifest mind becomes trapped by its own manifestations. Therefore, it is called, in Patanjali Yoga, it is called Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Chitta Vritti Nirodha. So that means the Chitta should be free from its vrittis, all types of modifications. The mind should know that these are the modifications, these are the only vrittis. There should be Nirodha. That should be, my mind should be free from these modifications. Modifications will be there, thoughts will be there, this empirical world will be there, my senses will be there, but my mind, the unmanifest mind, should remain absent. The unmanifest mind should remain absent in all the manifestations. That is the point. I think this way from a particular perspective. So we have to understand all the possible perspectives. We have to understand all the possible perspectives. If we are trapped by a particular perspective and we gave a conclusion to it and we become convinced by it and we made it our belief system, our knowledge system, and we live our entire life with that conviction, that means we are in bondage whole life. Our whole life is trapped by this perspective or that perspective, either by thesis or antithesis. We are trapped by our own thoughts. We are trapped by our own mental modifications, mental manifestations. So the unmanifest mind should remain neutral. The unmanifest mind is the mind of a Sthita Prajna, who is Sthita, who is stable with the wisdom. Wisdom of what? Wisdom of the knowledge. Wisdom means the wisdom of knowledge. Any thought is a knowledge, that is a knowledge system, but wisdom is the witness, that is Sthita. Sthita in wisdom, Sthita in prajna, Sthita in prajna. What is prajna? That I am unmanifest. These are my thoughts. With that prajna, mind should remain stable. Oh, if this is manifestation of my thought, this thought will come and go. If my mind will, if this thought, this is the thought from a given perspective. So far as this perspective is concerned, this thought is logical, this thought is correct. So far as another perspective is concerned, this thought is not correct. So the neutral mind, the Sthita Prajna Mana, the Sthita Prajna Manas should, can observe, can become the witness of all the modifications of mind. This is the only way of experimenting the status of unmanifest and manifest. So for that Sthita Prajna mind, all the dichotomies disappear, whether he is my enemy or my friend, failure, success, this, that, thesis, antithesis, because he is neutral. He is neutral. If I am happy from this perspective. If I am happy for this object, then that object is the condition of my happiness. So the same object will be the condition of my unhappiness if that object will remain absent. If the presence of an object gives me pleasure, the absence of the same object will give me pain. Who will understand? Who will understand this? Sthita Prajna Mana. Sthita Prajna mind. The mind who is stable, who is not trapped by either this emotion or that emotion, either this thought or that thought, that mind can understand that this is simply a manifestation of my mind. This is not the totality of my mind. This is not the total mind. This is not my total consciousness. This is only a modification of my mind. This is only a manifestation of my mind. This is only a perspective. And therefore, there is no thesis and antithesis. If it is a thesis, it is from one perspective. If that is an antithesis, that is also from another perspective. So thesis is false, antithesis is also false because they belong to two different perspectives. I can give another example. Water and fire, can they coexist? Water and fire cannot coexist in a bucket. In a bucket, can we store both water and fire? No. But in this cosmos, there is water and there is fire. How? If in a bucket water and fire cannot coexist, how in this empirical world there is water and there is also fire? An empirical mind, a logical mind will think, oh, they exist in this empirical world separately because there is a gap. They don't coexist like in a bucket, but they exist separately, therefore they can exist. But if we think that the whole cosmos is a bucket, if the whole cosmos is a container, then how can water and fire coexist? How can we boil water through an iron rod? Because there is also fire in another form, and by using that iron rod, we can boil water. How they coexist? It is only because of from different perspectives. Fire can exist from its own perspective. Water can exist from another perspective. So they can coexist. Thesis and antithesis both can coexist because they are thesis and antithesis from different perspectives. Why that man is friend? Why that man is enemy? This is our judgment. This is our judgment. Yes, my desires were not satisfied. My expectations were not fulfilled. Therefore, this person is my enemy. If my desires are satisfied, then this person is my friend. So whether a person is friend or enemy, that is relative to my own interest. So contradictions disappear, differences disappear when we land in synthesis, when we transcend to a higher realm. Therefore, that unmanifest mind, that Sthitarprajna mind, that neutral mind, who is Sthita, who is stable in that state? What is the human crisis today? Because our mind is not stable. We understand, we realize, we have a good philosophical knowledge, we have wisdom, but we are not stable in our knowledge. When the practical problems come, we become practical. We become practical means we become casual. We don't take risk. We don't take risk. Rather, we get satisfaction being frustrated, being worried. There is nothing to be worried because if one is established in that state of mind, that everything is only a manifestation from its own perspective, that man is never confused. In the battlefield, Arjuna was confused because Arjuna was trapped by his own thoughts. Arjuna did not have the unmanifest mind. Therefore, Lord Krishna said that you cannot understand the complete vision by your logical mind. So far you are logical. So far you claim that you are a rational animal. If man claims that he is more rational and the more he is rational, the more he is incompetent, the more he is limited to know the cosmic realm, to have the cosmic vision, because that is not the real instrument to have the cosmic vision. You have to go beyond your logical mind, because logical mind divides, analyzes, criticizes this and that, and it finds contradictions. So you have to transcend your logical mind. That is the cosmic mind. So in the philosophy of Aurobindo, there are discussion of different types of minds: higher mind, overmind, illumined mind, intuitive mind, super mind. And as your mind, so is your vision. As your mind, so is your vision. And as your vision, so is your nature of action. Therefore, Arjuna prayed Lord Krishna that now I am satisfied. I saw your complete manifestation. Now one trouble is with me. How can I be convinced? How can I be convinced that everything can also return to you? This may be one-way traffic. Yes, I am satisfied. You are everything. You are manifested in everything. From the cause, the effect has taken place. The effect is the outcome of the cause. Can the effect return to the cause? Can all the manifestations can return to the unmanifest? This was the question of Arjuna. Now you show me the unmanifest state, the universal form from which everything has come out. That was his prayer. Here Lord Krishna replied, it is not possible through your human eyes. You should need Divya Chakhu. Divya Chakhu is a symbolic term. There is no such Divya Chakhu. Divya Chakhu is described in mythology. Divya Chakhu. Here the question is, you cannot have that vision, you cannot have the vision of the unmanifest through your logical mind. Through your logical mind. Through your conditioned mind. Through your chitta vrittis. You have to be free from all vrittis. You should be qualified. So far as the mythology concerned, Lord Krishna gave him Divya Chakhu, that power to see the possibility of the unmanifest. Possibility of the unmanifest. This is there in the story. But in practical life, if we shall practice, if we shall do spiritual sadhana, the very simple sadhana, that simply observe your thoughts. Your thoughts are your world. If the mountain is there because you think of the mountain, there is a distinction between Vastu and Visaya. Even there is a Vastu and we see that Vastu. Even the Vastu is not there, we think of that Vastu and that becomes a subject, Visaya, Vastu and Visaya. So our thoughts are our world. So don't go anywhere, don't go to Himalaya, don't go to see the unmanifest Brahman or the entire divine glories of manifestation. Only sit quiet and observe your manifestations of thought. Simply observe your thoughts. That is called meditation. Meditation means to meditate upon, to concentrate upon the natural flow of our thoughts. Thoughts are very natural. Thoughts will come. Different types of thoughts will come. Contradictory ideas will come. Disturbing ideas will come. Just witness that. Just witness that. And you see how they are transitory. You see how all thoughts come and go. All thoughts come and go. So this is the capacity to see the contradictions. So here you can see, suppose you shall have that spiritual sadhana, you can see both life and death. I am here. If I shall be neutral, I shall have that cosmic sense, I shall have that neutral mind, then I can be free from my present status of life. And I can see my dead body lying there. So my dead body is lying there, and I am the person now I am speaking. Both are visualized by that neutral mind. Such people are there all around us. Not that they are professors of any university. He may be simply a farmer in the village who can have a mind of equanimity. That he or she is not trapped by its modification, its manifestation. I shall give an example, very practical example. Okay, so I shall give that example after 2 minutes. So Lord Krishna exposed the cosmic vision that all contradictions coexist in one place. Life and death, Pandavas and Kauravas. All the enemies are dead. All the wicked persons are killed by himself. Because the past, present and future are visualized in one spark of time. That is the state where we can see past, present and future. Lord Krishna sanctioned the divine eye, the Divya Chakhu. The Divya Chakhu means the higher state of consciousness, higher level of consciousness to Arjuna to see the whole reality, the total reality. From this, the ethics comes. What is the ethics beyond this Vishwarupa? If you see this Vishwarupa, then Arjuna requested the third prayer. The first prayer was, show me your full manifestation. The second prayer was, show me your unmanifest state. Now the third prayer of Arjuna, O Lord Krishna, I cannot see you in this form for a long time. I cannot see you in this universal form for a long time. As in Patanjali Yoga, we know that one cannot remain in the state of samadhi for a long time because his body will break. Because there should be an object of consciousness. Samadhi is a state, there is no object of consciousness. But one cannot stay for a long time in the state of samadhi. Similarly, Arjuna prayed to Lord Krishna, please come, please you come to your previous status. Please you become the manifest. Please return to your manifest state because I cannot see you long time in this form. That means human mind is adjusted with relativity. Human mind is adjusted with appearances. Even if we understand by hook or crook, by spiritual sadhana, the unmanifest state, we cannot stay there for a long time if we do not have that type of practice. That type of practice. That is just like the lotus in the water in the lotus leaf. It is very difficult. Because we need the practical life. We need this empirical world. We need our sense organs. We need our logical minds. If we shall not exercise our logical mind, people will treat us as mad person. So not to be treated as mad, we have to deal with our logical mind. But the wise person is he who deals with the logical mind and at the same time knows that he is using his logical mind. A very beautiful example I am saying you in the Jatra theatre drama, in a drama, Rama and Ravana, they are two persons. They are playing their roles. They are two manifestations of the director. Director has manifested two characters. One is Rama and the other is Ravana. One is hero and the other is villain. They are acting their roles on the stage. But after the drama, next morning, you will see that both are going on a moped bicycle. Their motorcycle, they are moving. You will ask that Rama and Ravana are going by his motorcycle. You will be surprised. They are moving by motorcycle friendly, but at the stage, they are thesis and antithesis. But after the drama, they are true friends, as if there is no drama. This should be our experience. Yes, I am a father. I am nobody. I am everybody. So far as the manifestation is concerned, I am a Mr. Nobody when the unmanifest is concerned. Yes, I am a father. I am a husband. I am a teacher. I am a son. These are the manifestations. I am playing different roles, but I have to understand these are only manifestations, my empirical roles, my social obligations. I am not really a father. I am not really a son. I am not really a teacher. I am Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi. It is the unmanifest identification. What is my manifest identification? That I am a father, I am a man, I am rational, I am logical, I am educated, I am this body, I am this mind, I am this intellect. These are the false identifications because I am satisfied with manifestations. The third possibility, and I shall speak only 2 minutes more. The third possibility is that the wisest person is he who is neither trapped by manifestation nor trapped by the unmanifest. Many wise people, many seers, they go to the state of unmanifest, but they fail to calm down this empirical world. This is a failure. This is not success. You speak of all great seers, those who are real seers, after enlightenment, after getting knowledge, wisdom, they have returned to the world. You speak of Gautam Buddha, you speak of Sankaracharya. In all these great seers, after getting their enlightenment, they have returned to this empirical world and they have served for common people. So, once you reach the highest point, the unmanifest state, if you remain there, that is also another trapping. So, go beyond the unmanifest and manifest. We can give an example. Suppose you are sitting in the seashore, you are looking at the waves and you are looking at the deep ocean. That means you are neither the ocean, the silent ocean, nor the violent waves. You are enjoying both. You are enjoying both. You are enjoying the violent waves, the manifestations, and you are enjoying the silent ocean, that is the unmanifest. If you are trapped by the vast silent ocean, then you are out of the manifestations. You are impractical. If you are only trapped by the waves and you are ignorant of the silent ocean, that is also another trapping. So Stita Prajna should come down to this empirical world. Suppose I am Sthita Prajna, I should not say that I shall go to Himalaya and I shall live a very peaceful life there. No, I shall come down to the people who are not Sthita Prajna, and my duty is to make them Sthita Prajna. So a Sthita Prajna mind can live with unstable minds. A stable mind can live with unstable minds. If a stable mind fails to live with unstable mind, that is not stable in the true sense of the term. That is not synthetic. That is again analytic. That is again logical. That is again exclusive. A Sthita Prajna mind should be all inclusive. I am simply the witness. I can witness the unmanifest states and the manifestations. This is the third stage. So 4 states of understanding. One is those who are very ignorant, they are satisfied with the incomplete manifestation that I told. We have a further inquiry to know the complete manifestation. Then we have a further inquiry to know the unmanifest. Then we have a further inquiry to be the real witness of both the unmanifest and the manifest. The example I was telling to say, that is, in our practical life, we have to learn how to manage with falsity. It may sound odd to listen. In our day-to-day life, we have to learn how to live with the appearances, relativities. As Arjuna told Lord Krishna, that you come back to the state of manifestation, because I cannot see your universal form for a long time. Similarly, when we are living with our son-in-law, daughter-in-law, there are so many complexities. If you will try to hear, if you will try to interfere the truth of everybody, what my son thinks about me, what my son said to his wife, what they feel about me. Suppose you came to know that your daughter-in-law is saying that you are a rascal, that you are useless. Suppose you try to know and you came to know, you will become frustrated. So try to manage with the relativity in the relative world. That is wise. And a Sthita Prajna mana, if a stable mind learns this art of living. Okay. Thank you. Dr. Rao.
Thank you, Professor Das, for yet another nice lecture. It was a beautiful lecture. I'll not give a synopsis to this. We'll take things in the question hour, question hour session. But 4 to 5 points that are very important from your lecture, what I marked, that in the beginning of your lecture, you said that the question of manifest and the unmanifest makes sense only for the human beings, and animals, for animals it carries no sense. And having said this, you say as far as human beings are concerned, they are at different layers of consciousness, and whatever level a human being may be, there is a vast ocean of ignorance surrounding him. And that's the reason why at every stage of consciousness, there is an attempt to elevate, to evolve higher and higher. And as far as the unmanifest or the highest knowledge is concerned, you took the help of sciences, religion, and philosophy, wherein you found the limitations of science being only probabilistic, and philosophy as being speculative, and religion as just successful in creating a belief system. So you talk, you say a beautiful message that you have conveyed, that our senses are important, our mind is important, but they take us to a particular level of consciousness. We require the senses. Yes, they have a role to play. Even the mind has a role to play, but they take us all the way to a particular level of consciousness. And beyond that, you have to transcend all this. It is only then you can elevate to the highest level of the unmanifest. And you said very beautifully that the sciences or the senses, wherein the senses and the mind are given importance, there is only a knowledge of an incomplete manifestation. That's why the science never satisfied with whatever result it has got. So that's why we say sciences are only probabilistic, because they are never satisfied with the conclusions, because they say still a final conclusion can never be reached in science. There is always a scope for revision, a modification. So sciences, through the sciences, there can be only what we can arrive at is only incomplete manifestation. But still, if we move a bit later, higher in the ladder, if you are more speculative through philosophy, we can have a vision, a sort of vision. Again, that may be from a perspective wherein you can think of a complete manifestation, but that is also not supporting you, because that is again from a perspective. But you say, as long as there is a mind, as long as there is reason, as long as there is logic, you will never allow contradictions to flow before you, because mind will never allow contradictions. Mind cannot allow both thesis and antithesis. So it is necessary for having both thesis and antithesis to have a synthesis. To attain this, mind has to be transcended. Even the mind has to be transcended, so that we find no problem with the thesis, nor do we find a problem in antithesis. Like you said, there is no problem. Both life and death, both are realities. Life is not just true, even death is also true. So the contradictions should exist. And who can see these contradictions together? Who can take these contradictions together? Those who elevate higher even the mind, those who transcend even the mind. So as I said, the senses, the mind, they do take us to a particular level. Beyond that, if we want to elevate still higher, we have to transcend the senses, we have to give away the senses, we have to transcend the mind to reach the highest, to have the vision, the cosmic vision of the unmanifest. So in that vision, what we see, there is a feeling of the unmanifest, and whatever manifestations that we see around us, we take them to be perspectives, and that are transitory and they are not permanent. Because they are perspectives, they have a reality from a standpoint, and hence they are only temporary, they are transitory. That's why a man of complete wisdom is Sthita Prajna. So he sees, since he is established in wisdom, he finds himself unmanifest, and also is able to see the manifestations as only the realities from different perspectives. So there is no problem in having the contradictions for Sthita Prajna. As a beautiful example that you said, that water and fire cannot coexist in a bucket, but if we take this entire cosmos as a bucket, we do see the contradictions do exist. Water and fire, they do exist. If we take this cosmos at the biggest, at the very infinite bucket, we do see that water and fire do coexist. So in the state of the unmanifest, all contradictions do exist, and that too very harmoniously. And only a man of complete wisdom, a Sthita Prajna, can see these contradictions together. So can we elevate to that level of consciousness? Yes, it is, as you said, it's a human possibility. Even in the lines of Bhagavad Gita, it is possible, but the journey is difficult. Thank you very much, sir, for your lecture. Well, we have a number of people attending this. If anybody has any issue, any question, they are free to ask. They can unmute themselves and they can pose a question. Well, I see. Sir, well, there is a question with Ravani Mishra. She says, so she says, we do see, well, when you talk of contradictions, Papa and Punya, they are, they are contradictions. And she poses a question, they are relative. Both Papa and Punya, they are also relative from, if we take from different perspectives. So, so he says, how can we see Papa and Punya from a level of consciousness? How do you see? How do you see both of them from a particular level of consciousness?
Yes, Papa and Punya, they are also relative to our social norms. Okay, that is, we have decided what is Papa and what is Punya. The society has decided. There are different types of society, so there are different types of norms. Norms differ from country to country, state to state, government to government, community to community. So similarly, the definition of a Papa and a Punya also varies. Okay, they are relative. Even in one level of consciousness, you think that this is Papa. In another level of consciousness, you will think that that is not Papa. The conception of a child and the conception of an adult and the conception of an old person varies. Okay, so far as the consciousness is concerned, the higher level of consciousness is concerned, such relatives remain relative. So we have to understand that these are relatives. These are relative to each other. We have to just understand this. But if we belong to a community, if we belong to a society, then we have to follow. If we belong to a particular form of government, then we have to follow the customary definition of Papa and Punya prevalent in that society, in that state, according to the government by which we are ruled. We have to follow that. But suppose you change your place, you went abroad, then their conceptions will be different. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, but I think her question is something, well, you said it from, they are relative from different perspectives, but what I see is, she wants to know, because the next question, she has a similar question, well, at a higher level of consciousness, whether the Papa and Punya both make sense without being contradictory. We cannot talk of Punya without there being Papa. Well, if there is no Papa at all, there is no talk of Punya also. If there is no life, there is no talk of death. So the highest level of consciousness, they all merge. They are not contradictions, because we cannot think of Punya unless and unless there is Papa. So there is, even though at a certain point of consciousness, well, we take as relative, but at the highest the highest level of consciousness, where we transcend even the mind, the Papa and Punya, they are not relative. Well, they support each other, because unless and until there is Papa, there is no Punya. How do you say this? Well, it's a beautiful question. How do you say this?
We have to understand the context. Suppose Arjuna will say that I should not kill my brothers, I should not kill my teachers, I should not kill my the elderly persons, because it will be my Papa. So here Lord Krishna will explain that even if you are going to kill them, this is not papa, because you are going to restore dharma, to establish dharma. So here you see there is a problem. Arjuna is advised to kill or to fight against his brothers, elders, teachers, etc. But in our society, what is the instruction? That don't fight with your parents, don't fight with your teachers, don't kill anybody, you have no right to kill. Such instructions are there, but the context will decide which is papa, which is punya. If anybody commits adharma, he may be father, he may be teacher, anybody else, we should fight against him, and that fighting is not papa. So we have to understand the context. We have to understand the perspective. In which perspective I am evaluating an action to be papa or punya. So we cannot have an absolute standard that this is always papa and this is always punya. Killing a person is not always papa. Killing a person in the battlefield is not papa. But killing a person for your personal benefit is papa. But the killing of the person is same or not? Killing a person by after operation, operation became unsuccessful and a doctor killed a person and a thief killed a person. In both the cases, the person is killed. But in one case, it is papa, and in the other case, it is punya. Suppose you have to save your life. 5 people will come and they will attack you. They will come and they will attack you. Then in order to save your life, suppose by the process you killed somebody, then that is not papa. Okay, so it depends. So a sthita prajna, a stable mind can understand the perspective, can understand the context. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Sravani, Mr. Madam, see, what I see is, as far as perspectives are concerned, there is no issue. The problem that she faces is, at the highest level of consciousness, whether that any talk of papa, punya, good and bad, make any sense?
No sense, because they are the manifestations.
Yes, that is the point.
They are the manifestations.
Yes, and when you come to the manifestations, when you come to the perspectives, they make sense. But in the highest level of consciousness, there is
even they have no sense when you are asleep. When you are sleeping, then they don't have no sense. No papa, no punya, no life, no death, no relation. Nothing is there. Not only in the higher state of consciousness, when you are unconscious also, when you are going to sleep, in that case also, they have no meaning. We have to understand that. Only when we become awake, we think of the context, situations, definitions, descriptions, society, family, relationship. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you. Well, so the thesis and the antithesis is compatible at the highest level of consciousness. They can be taken together. So that's the message from Professor Das. Now somebody NS she says, well, well, the question is something like this. Well, if a tiger kills a cow for food, but it is a food, it has to, because that is a part of the life. Okay, so is it a papa? How do you say this? For food, tiger kills a cow, is it papa?
Tiger, no papa. I told that.
Yes.
No. Papa and punya.
Human beings only, for human beings.
That is the judgment of a logical mind. That is not the judgment of animals. They behave according to the nature. According to the nature. They don't think that killing a cow is papa or punya. It is only the possibility of a human mind. It is the possibility of a logical mind, not a human mind. Human mind has many dimensions. It is the possibility of a logical mind. Papa punya, dichotomies, good, bad, right, wrong.
Thank you, sir. Papa Punya, good, bad, right, wrong, they carry a sense and meaning only for a logical mind, a rational mind. It doesn't extend to animals. So thank you for your response. Well, we have people with us, connected with us. If somebody wants to ask something, they can directly unmute themselves. I am not imposing upon anybody. If somebody wants, they are free to unmute themselves, and I'll wait for a half a minute for somebody to unmute. And if they have an issue, any question, any suggestion, they are free to even make an observation on the entire lecture delivered by Professor Das. I'll wait for half a minute. Or if you are not comfortable, you can even post your question in the chat box. I'll take it from the chat box. Otherwise, we can wind up the session. I'll wait for half a minute. I think there is no issue because the lecture was so clear, so precise, very nicely delivered. So I don't think there is any issue, any problem with anybody on the entire talk. So thank you, sir, for a very good lecture. A lot of issues you discussed, and you showed the way ahead as to how even the contradictions, the so seeming contradictions, can exist together in the cosmos, in the consciousness of the unmanifest, having the consciousness of the unmanifest, where even the contradictions can be together. Thank you for this lecture. Now I request Srimati Swarnalata Tripathi Madam for proposing a formal vote of thanks. Over to Swarna Madam.
Namaskar to all. Respected participants, I thank all the participants for their participation in the Gita lecture program. Your presence is our inspiration. We solicit your benign presence in all sessions. I thank Pramod sir for delivering a beautiful talk on the cosmic vision of the unmanifest. I thank Dr. Rao sir for coordinating, moderating, and giving a beautiful concluding note. I thank you all and hope your participation in the Gita lecture series on every Saturday. Thank you all. Pranam.
I also thank you, Madam, for organizing this webinar series on Bhagavad Gita. So, by thanking all the participants present in today's webinar, let me declare this meeting closed. Good night, everybody.